This should work. And I am seeing fluctuation on the volume, which means this does work. Okay, well, that's stupid. And by that, I mean, it was maybe a little unobservant for me to be yammering away, looking at the bottom of the screen and going, there are usually green dots that signify that there's volume and I'm actually talking. So, oh well. I rambled on for quite some time about campaign diary and diatribes about like game balance and my opinion about legendary resistances in D&D until my beloved friend Snooter came in and was like, I can't hear you. And I immediately knew the problem was me. Though they were very kind and were like, I'm checking to make sure it's not on my end. It's like, no, it's me. It's me. The green dots haven't been there the entire time. I thought maybe I was mistaken. I was not. So, yeah. That's fine. It's okay. It happens and I'm just going to have to get over it. So, greetings. Thank you. And welcome. Yeah. The other video is me talking about my campaign stuff, and for sake of follow through, I'm just gonna go ahead and fucking do it. Abridged style. So with a bunch of pop culture jokes. Kidding. I'm currently running a game. It's this giant dungeon. It's fashioned out of a drawing challenge where you draw a dungeon room a day for a whole year. I thought it would be cool, and so we're doing it. The players have been playing it for a while. It was like session 5, I think, last time. And we left off with the gnome player in the party having been drugged under the earth by this earth demon that's basically just Diabound from Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't tell anyone. And he was basically going to be under there, suffocating until his character died, unless someone could save him. After the last game had ended, the player had said, hey, could my dragon partner have tried to, like, grab me? And because this is a particularly dangerous thing happening to him, I said yes. Because sometimes you think, well, we got to push it. The players are strong. It's really difficult to threaten them. But in this case, I felt like it was better to be more forward than not, given the circumstances. In the last video, I hemmed and hawed about that to a silent camera. We picked up. We resolved that first. The dragon did not succeed, so the gnome was underground. I explained, hey, you're going to have your constitution modifier, amount of rounds, I think +1. I read it off at the time, so I was accurate. You're going to have a certain amount of turns before your character dies underground. People were more or less responding to this earth demon and its attacks up to this point by just holding their action for when it stuck a hand or whatever up, and then they'd hit it. I feel like the decisions made were influenced by how forward I was about the mechanics, and I think that's a bit of a bummer, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it was okay. Because basically what happened once the gnome was underground, people were trying to think of a way to rescue him. The monk player had a bag of tricks, and so he reached in. He was trying to, because one of the things you can get out of a bag of tricks is a badger. He was trying to, like, find a badger, you know. So there's some animals around. Basically, there are two people who had, like, more better, clever ideas. Like, it was debated about, like, casting Shatter. The bard player was like, well, maybe I could cast Shatter and it might unearth you. And I brought up the possibility of Collapse. I brought up the same possibility with, like, the barbarian, because the barbarian was like, well, I think it'd be cool to wait until this thing's hand came up again and then try to grapple it and like not let it go. And I said, that's cool as hell. No guarantee that's going to work, but I think that's cool as hell. And then he was like, or I could try to like smash through the earth to get to our gnome friend because he is incredibly strong. He's got like a 35 strength or something at current. So he could. There'd be risk of collapsing the tunnel if he did, but he could do it. Ultimately, he decided he was going to wait for the grapple chance. The bard decided he was going to wait to cast slow. Yeah, I agree. The bard's going to wait to cast slow, and the paladin player, who was a new person who joined us for this, was basically going to wait because he's very strong. He's got a good strength score, and he's got a magic item or two that gives him more strength. And that's how. Magic items, basically. It's magic items. So they basically like waited until the thing attacked again, and then they all like did their various things that they were gonna do. Now, I'm going to shorten the diatribe I went on in the first video where I was talking to Silence. In Dungeons & Dragons, there are things called legendary resistances, where like a certain amount of times per day, they just get to like make their saves instead. The idea is you don't want to have an unsatisfying boss fight because someone casts Soul Cage, and then because the enemy rolls a 2 on their save, oh, they're just stuck and they can't do anything. It's kind of like video games where they have a boss that's just blanket immune to all status effects because they don't want you to like cheap it out. But like that kind of sucks. I think it kind of sucks, even though I understand. I do two different things. One, I use legendary resistances, but I do it the MCDM way because I'm Matt Colville's shill, where you have a legendary resistance, but it costs the enemy something. So it's not just like you just didn't do anything. Like I once made like a fox demon lady because I am a weeb, and she like charmed people, but her legendary resistance forced her to like release one of the people she had charmed. In kind of like my logic was, in a brief moment, her magic is stretched too thin and she has to like give something up. I do legendary resistances like that, where you get something out of it. But sometimes I don't do legendary resistances at all. And this is a case where I think it was good that I didn't, because I think it was a cooler outcome that when this creature like went for its final attack and people like threw their save spells, the demon actually rolled. I roll in front of people because I just am a baller like that. And the demon failed its saves against like the paladin who wanted to command it and the dude, the bard who wanted to slow it. So basically the paladin ended up like commanding it to save their friend. Command's supposed to be like a one-word thing, but I like said, "Oh, save." I get that. And so basically the demon was compelled to do that, but also it got slowed, which meant its attacks were more sluggish, and it really kind of turned things around. The gnome player was trapped down there, and I was going to have the demon dude like basically leave pretty soon because it was getting kind of hurt and it didn't like that, but was going to go for one final attack where it like hand grab, tail grab. It just tries to grab 3 people, and then it gets who it gets, and then doesn't. And then just leaves. And we had a moment where I described the different players from different angles, seeing the different attacks coming, and then the bard casts slow, and it makes the attacks more sluggish, and then the barbarian grapples the crap out of one of the hands, and the paladin makes their command of the demon, and like it works. And I think it was cooler. Like, there is no point in using statuses on weak grunts. The only point of using status effects is against opponents who will survive long enough to get some mileage. I agree. There is a but then at the end of the statement, but I agree. I could easily see someone saying in a battle of attrition, wiping grunts really easily is good. But if you like actually fighting things, like I do, I think that that's maybe not the reward that it is treated as in that kind of argument. But then we continue, but then, and then, when we get to the bosses, they're like, we're immune to everything. And it's like, okay, then why even bother having status spells? Yeah, actually, I agree. Which is why in my games, I do either the legendary resistances where the boss still costs, it still costs them something, so you still make progress, because I think that's a good idea. Or with the case of Diabound, I just didn't give him legendary resistances at all. And I didn't do that, but I also had him kind of set up. Sometimes I will have bosses that don't have legendary resistances or things like that, but I will try to set them up in a way where they will be impactful quickly. And if they eat a save spell or two, okay, it still doesn't feel unsatisfying. Especially with this guy, because he's hidden in stone. Like, you can't target, a lot of spells require line of sight. So really it's just, okay, I'm gonna wait until he pops up and cast something on him. He already has like a little bit of a little bit of an advantage. There's a little bit of a setup. And in general, I'm a proponent of, if you can get away with it, trying to set up your boss so they are protected in other ways that aren't legendary resistances. And then for like big campaign ending things, go ahead and do legendary resistances, but have it cost them something. Like the default example that I think of is, there's an enemy in the MCDM monster book who's just like a mercenary commander that has a magic sword that like drains his health when he saves. So it's like, you can save out of something, you can legendary resistance, but it'll cost you a chunk of your health, which I think is brilliant in a few ways, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read legendary resistances are good idea because they're finite, and I would think players feel good when they hear the boss had to use their one legendary resistance for the day to stop what you did. Potentially, bosses usually have like 3. Like, it's usually like 3. It's rare that I see an enemy with like less than 3. And I think that logic makes sense, but I have also seen people argue that I cast my big spell and it didn't do anything. Like, I definitely can see how it goes either way. Even though I do agree, I kind of feel like you do, but I understand the other argument. But in general, if I can get away with it, I try to set up the boss so it's protected in other ways that aren't legendary resistances, and if it eats a cool spell, it eats a cool spell. But on the other hand, if you run over an adventuring day, instead of letting everybody come in at full at the beginning of every session, this becomes less of a problem in general. But I definitely should not go on that tangent because I have limited time, and also it's not truly part of the campaign diary. That was the turning point. The command worked in getting the gnome free, so I basically just had the demon from underneath just kind of push the gnome back up without like revealing too much of itself, and then it just left. Technically what happened was, since it was slowed after its sluggish attacks, it didn't have enough movement to go back into the stone all the way, so people who wanted to hit the hands hit them. The barbarian grappled his hand, and then on the demon's turn, it just kind of pushed the gnome back up above ground and started to leave with the barbarian. And I gave the barbarian a choice, like, hey, you're basically going to go along with this thing if you keep it grappled. Do you want to? Because I thought maybe he does. But the barbarian was like, nah, okay, I'm not going to. So the enemy left. And what they don't know is that it's returned to its lair inside this level of the dungeon. It's going to regenerate in some time, and it's probably going to be back. And now it's going to play a little smarter. But they'll also be stronger. I'm sure it'll be okay. This session, there's not much to report because we resolved that fight, people got their bearings, and then they moved on to a room that they've been interested in for a while. There's the weird-shaped room. Early on, the players found this secret room that had a hole in the wall that if you put water down that hole, water flows through cracks that have been strategically made like in the canal that basically makes like a water stained map of this floor of the dungeon. They discovered it by casting light on a coin and putting it down there, but like it still worked. It was one of my cooler room ideas. So the players have been going around with a map, and there's one room that's like a rectangular room, and then a little bit of hallway, and then a circular bit, more hallway, and then like a trapezoid, like at the end. And they're like, that's a weird shaped room. It is also the Beholder room, so I was excited to see them run into that for other reasons. Basically, how the room is set up, there's a room, and then in the circular place, the circular part, there's like a circular chamber, and then there's an inner part of the circular chamber that's almost a complete circle that's open in the way that you come in. And it's got handles on either side, and you can rotate it so the opening turns to the other way, and then you can move through. And before I continue talking about my brilliance, viewer says, if I found that, I would want to fill the whole thing with ink and sell maps of it to adventurers. Lol. That's cool, and I would respect that hustle. In fact, if an NPC makes it that far, they might do the same. So basically, moving that circular portion inside the circle chamber makes noise, which alerts the beholder, who then drifts down and then prepares an action to just blast you with eye beams. And I thought it was going to be a fun time. And it was. I shouldn't say I thought, but like that's how I devised it. I figured that a beholder by itself would not be challenging enough, and boy, was that correct. So I also, in the trapezoid room, there's like a layer above the trapezoid room that the beholder floats down from, and it's got its own little layer above. But there are also these secret compartments in the walls that these little death kisses, which are like these little mini white beholders with tendrils instead of eye stalks, were going to like float out of when people got over there. So basically, people turned the thing, got blasted, letting go of the thing like turns it back, so there was a little bit of, hey, could you hold it so I run through and like hit this guy kind of stuff. And there was maneuvering, and then the death kisses came out once people were in the beholder place and started like wrapping people and shocking people, and that was pretty cool. I don't think the fight was like hard, but it was meaty, which is okay. I actually went through a bunch of the fights on this floor and like beefed them up because I thought I was kind of going a little too light. But I also want to be mindful of how much time the fights take, because I try to go for something that's impactful, reasonably challenging, but also doesn't take forever. Because, you know, that's something that some people complain about. Some people just kind of shrug off. Well, here's the thing. I don't think the Beholder's that strong. And also their level. Like my players are currently level 8, so they're pretty high up there, which I think is like worth noting. I shouldn't have slandered the Beholder. They're level 8 right now, so like they're fairly strong, and they're also a martial heavy party. One of the cool things that a Beholder has going for it is like that cone of anti-magic that it projects, but like that doesn't matter to like most of my party. Furthermore, I think the saving throws for its eye stalks are a little too low. I use the default ones, which are like 16, which is kind of puny for like the level that they're at. Even though the player's handbook doesn't think so. Like a Beholder is a CR 13 monster. I also talked about this last video, and I will again briefly. Challenge rating in D&D is whack. Everyone knows it's whack. It does not function. I don't really use it, but like a Beholder is like a CR 13 monster, which supposedly means that a single Beholder is an equal challenge for 4 level 13 characters. That's super not true. If I had thrown it by itself, it would have gotten its ass kicked. I remember reading the example of CR in the book where they said, oh, one CR 12 vampire is an equal match for 4 level 12 adventurers. I'm like, what? No. That guy's going down super fast. Come on, man. CR is whack. The Beholder is strong and it is dangerous, but like, honestly, I think one of the biggest unspoken bits of gaming wisdom with like combat in like games like D&D is you have to rig the fight or prepare the like terrain of the fight in some way, or you need to have some kind of other stuff around it. Just putting monsters in a room and going, that's enough, super is not. They knew it back in the day, and some people like me know it now, but like I definitely think there are a lot of people that just kind of go, this monster's really strong, the book says so. Okay, but if it's just sitting there, you're outnumbered. It's not going to go well. But anyway, so people got blasted, but they lived. Something that I do that maybe I shouldn't, but at the same time I think it's cool. People wanted to try cutting off some of its eye stalks, and I basically did what I do whenever anyone wants to make a called shot like that, where I basically just go, okay, if you roll really high, you can. Basically, if you hit the AC of the monster, you hit it, and if you roll a certain amount higher than that, like a significant amount higher than that, then I will let you like do that shit most of the time. And the Beholder's AC is like 18. Honestly, yes. I can imagine Wizards of the Coast trying to tell us that, and DMs being like, you don't know my party. Yeah, actually. Pretty much. Did you know, viewers, that the standard, like, math that they do for balance assumes that nobody has any magic items? Like, any book listing of, like, how strong or weak something's supposed to be assumes that nobody has any magic items at all, as far as 5th edition is concerned, which is incredibly whack. I bet it makes the rating, the challenge rating, easier to write, but like unrealistic? Like that vampire example. What level 12 party doesn't have like magic weapons already or other stuff? Like, what are you talking about, man? Just weird. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe magic items should have level adjustments for calculating CR. Maybe they should. There are people out there that have their own calculations that are better than my vague nonsense where I just kind of look at stuff and use my own experience. Who knows? And in the new like 2024 rulebook, they almost certainly haven't fixed it. I was going to say maybe they fixed it, but like they definitely haven't. And wouldn't that make enemies immune to non-silver damage CR Infinity? I don't know. Actually, no. I don't know, man. I guess that would be kind of hard to quantify. Though there are enemies that are like immune to non-silvered and non-magical damage. It's just magical damage is very easy to come across, which is kind of a bummer because I wish some things were tougher and cooler, and then in my game I just make them that. Like a vampire, like I think vampires are resistant, so they take half damage from like non-magical attacks, but like magic weapons, okay, you're fine. Lycanthropes could also be cooler, but like whatever. I'm going to use some lycanthropes at the next level of this dungeon I'm talking about, but my players are not there yet. But anyway, they fought the Beholder. They fought the Blood Kisses. The Beholder eventually like pieced out to his lair and let like his little Blood Kiss minions like attack people. But the players were ultimately able to rip through it. I think the monk got. Yes. It's desert themed, the dungeon I'm doing, so I'm going to be using some jackal wares, but like modified a little bit. I think the monk got like paralyzed, but of the people who got struck by the beholder's eye beams, they like pretty much everybody made their saves. I think someone got hurt from like one of the beams that did a bunch of necrotic damage. The monk got paralyzed, which okay, but like people made their saves. DC 16 I think was too low. I should have modified it, but this isn't the first time I didn't modify an enemy and wish I had, and it won't be the last. Though at least the last time I didn't modify an enemy, it was too strong, despite the shit talking that I have just done about official material. And I should really tell that story someday, but it's not going to be today. Like and subscribe if you want the story about the Jiangshi sorcerers, is I guess my point. Can you like and subscribe on a stream? I guess you can on the VOD. Like and subscribe to hear about Jiangshi sorcerers. Awesome. One like and I'll do it. You got it. Just not right now. Awesome. I was mentioning if the players rolled significantly over its armor class and wanted to try to cut off an eye stalk, I said sure. The attack bonuses that my players have or their rolls, and the attack bonuses were like high enough. People would be like, okay. I was thinking in my head, okay, it's got an AC of 18. If you get significantly higher than that, sure, you can get off an eye stalk. And people were like, okay, I got 26 to hit. Okay, I got 24 to hit. Okay, I got... And there were some times where they didn't, and they like missed, but it was like, okay. Like right off the bat, they like took off 2 eye stalks, and I thought it would be fun to like roll randomly. Like I'll roll the D10, and instead of rolling for the eye beam effect, it'll be a roll for which eye stalk you take. 9 and 10 got rolled immediately, and it's like, spoilers, 9 and 10 are like the most powerful ones. So it's like, okay, live by making cool decisions, die by making cool decisions. The fight itself was all right. People got hurt. It was more challenging than I think just a single beholder by itself. Eventually, the beholder actually gave up, because that's something else I do. If enemies are intelligent and value their lives enough, then they will try to deal with the party. And whether or not the party spares them, like, we'll see. But like my players did, the beholder from like its little lair up above, at one point when they'd taken out all but like one of the death kisses, there were like 4, and they ate through 3 of them. They'd already really beaten up the beholder. So there came a point where he was just like, hey, I'll give you my treasures if you leave and like let me go. And the players were like, hey, you should tell us details about this dungeon, and you should give us that treasure. And I think they asked for like a third thing. I think they asked about like the demon, and the thing knew what they were talking. The beholder knew what they were talking about. It was like, yes, you've encountered that creature. And they were like, tell us about that demon too. I don't think they know it's a demon yet, but they'll find out. Okay, but like if you did that in a party I was in, I'd be using animal empathy to adopt like every cute creature we came across. Hey, that's just player life. Some players be like that. I referenced it in one of my like recent drawing posts, but in my Shadow Dark game, we encountered a chained up owlbear, and someone at the table absolutely tried to set it free and befriend it, because of course it is the way of things. People trying to befriend animals that they come across, and even not animals, sometimes even monsters. Such is player life. You're welcome to do that. If we play in anything, you're welcome to do that. There's actually something, I need to make a video for it, but there's a series of one-shots I want to do, and I'm going to make a video announcing them, and I need people for whatever. Anyway, and that's where the session ended. So the session really covered just like dealing with the end of Diabound, and then carefully getting into the weird-shaped room, getting blasted, fighting that beholder, then eventually coming into the room proper and fighting its little minions, crunching through them, and then the beholder eventually giving up and being like, hey, if you leave, I'll give you stuff. And the player's going, give us more stuff, actually. Give us information on top of the treasure you're going to give us. And it going, fine. And so next time, the beholder's going to give them some information. And they're going to get some magic items. And then I don't know where they're going to go. They're in like one half of the dungeon. They've explored a good part of it. There's a place on their map that's marked with like a skull and crossbones. And that's actually the like Earth Demon's lair. And some people have said, oh, I really want to go see where that is. I bet that's the boss room. I wonder if they'll be eager to go there now. Who's to say? Little do they know the real boss of this place is like the Scorpion King. That's going to be fun when we get to it. Whenever we get to it. Not so bad. Pretty short. That was basically the session. Last video I also talked to a microphone that wasn't on about this way of GMing, having just like a dungeon floor prepared, and then I don't worry as much week to week about preparation. It's definitely different, but I'm becoming paranoid that like maybe people will be bored, which I think the paranoia is ill-founded. Stuff is definitely happening, but I'll keep thinking about it. And yeah, that's it basically. So this coming Saturday, we'll continue playing. They'll get their stuff, and we'll move on. That's like the second big enemy they've like made in this dungeon. That demon. The first one being basically Dark Ruler Hades from Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I've hit a phase where I just start using Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff for enemies. Not all the time, but like a bunch. It's a good phase. I like it. It is also basically the amount of time that I intended to stream for. So those of you that joined me, thank you very much for joining me. And see you next time. Or maybe even see the VOD next time. I don't know. And at some point later today, I'm basically going to put out a video talking about some one-shots that I want to run and asking if people are down. It's going to be online and stuff. Thank you very much. See you next time.